All right, let's just get right into it. The way you're probably learning right now, well, it might be quietly sabotaging your own memory. Today, we're going to unpack a completely modern, science backed approach that kind of flips everything you thought you knew on its head, all to help you learn anything faster and, more importantly, make it stick.
So, does this sound familiar to you? You spend hours, maybe even days, just cramming information. You're reading, you're highlighting, you're taking pages of notes, and then a week later, it's just gone. It's vanished. You know you put in the work, so why doesn't the knowledge actually stick around? The problem isn't your effort, it's your entire method. You see, you're probably caught in something we can call the comfortable learning trap. And this is the real heart of the problem. When you just passively reread your notes or watch a summary video, it feels super productive, right? But your brain is basically in screensaver mode. This creates something called an illusion of competency, where you feel like you get it, but you haven't really done the work to encode that information for the long haul. Okay, so that brings us to our first huge principle. And I'll admit, it's a little counterintuitive at first. It's called the effort paradox. The common goal is to make learning easier, isn't it? Find the shortcuts, use AI to summarize things, anything to reduce the mental strain. But what if that is the exact wrong way to go about it? Now check this out. What's so interesting here is how it frames the whole idea of effort. Over on the left, you've got your easy, passive learning. It feels good in the moment, sure, but you end up paying for it later with hours and hours of restudying. But on the right, you have effortful, active learning. Yeah, it feels like a struggle now, but think of it as an upfront investment that actually buys you back time and locks that knowledge in for good. The key here is to introduce something called cognitive resistance. Think about it like this. Your brain is just like a muscle. It doesn't get stronger by lifting little feather-light weights. It grows when it's actually challenged. So by deliberately making the learning process a little bit harder, you're forcing your brain to wake up, to engage, to process everything more deeply. And that's what forms those stronger neural connections. This quote just perfectly captures that mindset shift we're talking about. It is not about finding the path of least resistance. The real goal is to find the right level of struggle, that sweet spot where your brain is being challenged just enough to actually grow. That feeling of strain, that isn't a sign that you're failing. It's the physical sensation of learning actually happening. And there is solid science to back all of this up. It's called the generation effect. Decades of research have shown that when you actively generate an answer from your own mind, instead of just reading it off a page, you remember it so much better. It's the difference between being told a fact and actually figuring it out for yourself. All right, so let's move on to our second principle and see how this all builds on each other. This one is all about demolishing a myth that something like 80% of people still believe is true, and it might be holding you back without you even knowing it. I am sure you've been asked this a million times, or maybe you've even taken one of those online quizzes. Are you a visual learner, an auditory learner? Do you learn best by reading and writing? Most of us have an answer ready to go for that one. Well, it turns out that whole concept is a myth. That's right. Decades of research have tried and failed to find any credible evidence that teaching to a specific learning style actually improves anything. In fact, clinging to just one style can be a huge disadvantage. And here's why. First off, pretty much every human brain is overwhelmingly visual. It's just how we're wired. Second, the real world couldn't care less about your preferred style. Information is going to come at you from reports, meetings, videos, hands-on tasks, all of it. So if you can only learn effectively one way, you're basically choosing to be inefficient most of the time. So the really crucial point here is this. We need to shift the question we ask ourselves. We've got to stop asking, do I understand this, which is a super passive question. The new, much more powerful question is, how can I organize this? That one little word changes everything. From just passively receiving information to actively building something with it. Think of it this way. Passive learning is kind of like just randomly throwing furniture and papers into a room. Sure, you can understand what each individual item is, but the room is a total mess and you can't find anything when you need it. Active organization, on the other hand, is like being an architect. You design the room, you place everything deliberately, and you build a functional, coherent structure you can actually navigate. And that brings us to our final principle. And honestly, this is maybe the most immediately actionable one of them all. It completely redefines the whole purpose of testing, turning it from this scary final judgment into your most powerful learning tool. This probably looks painfully familiar. It's the classic marathon method.
You spend weeks just consuming information, and then in a final last-minute panic, you start testing yourself right before the big exam. You're saving the most important part of the entire process for the very end. The massive danger here is that you might discover on that final day that a core concept you learned all the way back in week 1 was completely wrong. Your entire tower of knowledge has been built on this faulty foundation, and now you have to try and rebuild the whole thing under incredible pressure. It's a nightmare. So the new way is all about maximizing iteration. It's a continuous loop. You learn a little and you test yourself a little. The test isn't some judgment on your intelligence. It's a diagnostic tool. Its only purpose is to shine a light on what you don't know yet, so you can fix it right away before you move on. So how do you actually do this? Well, first, you have to remember the goal is to find your gaps, not to get a perfect score and feel good. Try scheduling short, weekly self-tests. Use something called micro-retrieval. After you read a single page, just close the book and try to explain the core idea out loud. If you can do it, great. If you stumble, awesome. You've just found a knowledge gap in real time. So, you see, when you put these 3 principles together, you don't just have a handful of tips. What you have is a completely new integrated system for how to learn anything. So let's just recap the 3 big keys. First, stop trying to avoid difficulty. Instead, create cognitive resistance. Second, stop being a passive photocopier of information and start being a knowledge architect who organizes it. And third, use constant low-stakes testing to find and fix your weak spots right away. Now, I don't want this to just be some interesting information that you forget about. I want you to actually lock it in. So to finish off this explainer, I have a little challenge for you. And it's only going to take you 7 minutes. Right now, we are going to use the exact principles we just talked about, cognitive resistance and active retrieval, to basically burn this information into your long-term memory. Here it is. As soon as this is over, I want you to set a timer for 7 minutes. Your task is to explain these 3 principles, the effort paradox, being a knowledge architect, and the iteration effect, out loud. You can explain it to a friend, a family member, or even just talk to yourself in a mirror. But there's only one rule: no looking at your notes. This is going to force you to generate the information, not just review it. And finally, after you do the challenge, come back here and share your experience. What was the biggest aha moment for you from all this? Or maybe even more importantly, what knowledge gap did that little challenge reveal? When you struggled to explain one of the principles, which one was it? Let us know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see what you discover about your own learning. Now go lock it in.